All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program, and that's a really good thing, actually. Michael Wordsworth. It's going to be an interesting show today.
Obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth. You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought out loud, that thought exists, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions. The Bible, poetry, essays, all kind, all of it an opiate to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
Yeah? Well, we're gonna have to do something about that. This is RiverWestRadio.com, community-supported radio streaming live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm your host. My name is Michael Wordsworth, and welcome to Breaking Down the News, the show that presents the news highlights of the week, but with a twist. Breaking Down the News is more concerned in bringing you information that wasn't covered on the front pages. Headlines you don't want to miss, because not listening could be dangerous to your freedom, liberty, and health.
And good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Wow, what a day, what a show, what a world condition. It is Monday, September 17th, 2012. I am Michael Wordsworth, sitting in with Caitlin Redding. She just pulled in off of a trip, gone all weekend. And boy, do I have some bombshells for us today. It's really amazing, actually. I'm going to start off right off the bat by just simplifying the whole situation. All weekend long, all I did is monitor news regarding military deployments and conflicts throughout the world. Got a nice list of them in order. We'll go over some headlines that we're going to be talking about here. Armada of British naval power massing in the Gulf as Israel prepares for a strike on Iran. That's right, an armada, which is a large fleet of ships, naval warships, both of U.S. and British naval power. And let me say something about the word is, Britain never pulls out their naval forces unless they're seriously going to do something. I don't know why, there we go. I don't know why that's the case, you know. That was the first on me, but this whole idea that, oh, well, wait a minute, if Britain's actually pulling out their navy. Remember they used to be all over the world?
Yeah, they used to be all over. Actually, I do remember hearing something about that when the Falkland Island incident happened. Then apparently, for some reason, they feel the naval operations cost is astronomical to them. So I'm not sure what they're doing or how that all comes down, but apparently they feel that the expense is just huge.
Well, yeah, I mean, the expense in itself. Tell you what, I'm going to take a commercial break here and come back. We got to break it down. It's amazing. Basically, we got a world on the verge of war. China and Japan are engaged in conflicts over some island, Falkland. Oh, geez, I can't remember what exactly. I'll read the article. You got conflicts tightening there. You've got India moving tank brigades along the border of China to help the Chinese. So I'm not sure what.
Really?
Well,
to help the Chinese?
This is what I assumed. I mean, are they afraid that the?
I would think it would be preemptive. If they were putting a line of tanks there, it might be because they're afraid of what China's going to do. But since I'm...
All right, we got to... Well, I know for a fact that India has mobilized its tank brigades along the Chinese border. Well, more on that. I mean, honestly, I don't want to report anything. And, boy, I mean, like, my little head was just... I refrigerated my cough all weekend. just after report, listening to expert after expert. Hopefully we can break that down and simplify it for everybody today. World on the verge of war. I'm Michael Wordsworth, Caitlin Redding. This is Breaking Down the News.
Wow.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Experiments have shown that less than 1 minute after the viewer begins to watch television, the brain switches from beta-level consciousness, associated with active and logical thought, to alpha level, which is associated with passive acceptance and suggestibility. This is why advertisers spend billions of dollars a year on commercials, as well as product placement within TV shows. Political messages are implanted in fictional TV programs as the relaxed meditative state of the viewer is receptive to the programming.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard.
And we're back. What an exciting September day this is. Incredible. It's kind of interesting. Caitlin says she's in a good mood, and I can't help but be a little freaked out. Let me read the news as it stands, okay? This article is from Zero Hedge. A world on the verge of war. Here's a little summation of what's been going on with the world over the weekend, okay? Here is a summary of where the world stands. Okay, one, unable to reach a compromise over the weekend, South Africa is now in all-out labor strike. They're now in an all-out labor strike, with the police again firing rubber bullets at miners with lethal escalation guaranteed. Back from vacation, the once again penniless citizens of Spain, Greece, and Portugal have resumed protesting austerity. I guess the Europeans are off their vacation. And it's back to work, protesting their austerity measures. And you've also got U.S. embassies attacked. I don't know who hasn't heard this weekend, but in many cases with numerous casualties. Now, these embassies were not in just Libya. You've had U.S. embassies attacked in Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Sudan, Lebanon, India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and others.
Holy cats.
Now you got Japan appropriating China-contested islands, provoking a firestorm of retaliation, including demands for war with Japan. The Japanese ambassador to China dying mysteriously. Netanyahu telling Meet the Press Iran will have a nuke. Benjamin Netanyahu is the Prime Minister of Israel. A big fanatic about war with Iran. Well, he told Meet the Press that Iran will have a nuke in 7 months and must be stopped beforehand. Now, I'm glad. On a related issue, I have an article that says Netanyahu in 1999 made the same statement. 1992. Netanyahu in 92 made the statement. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is trapped in reflection theory. He was allegedly himself involved in illegally smuggling nuclear triggers out of the U.S., and he assumes that Iran desperately wants a nuclear weapon as well. But now this is. But Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has given a fatwa against nukes, and there's no solid intelligence pointing to an Iranian weapons program. Iran can't be close to having a weapon if it doesn't have a weapons program. Our own CIA confirmed that they are way off. That is not a justified concern that Iran has nukes. I just wanted to say that in 1992, Israeli Member of Parliament Benjamin Netanyahu predicted that Iran was 3 to 5 years from having a nuclear weapon. I mean, damn it, that's online. You can go check that out and verify. There's probably videos of him saying that. Then in 1995, the New York Times quotes U.S. and Israeli officials saying that Iran would have the bomb by 2000. All right.
What U.S. officials? This wasn't that UN visit, was it?
Well, that was back in 1995. And then 1998, these are all articles that are online confirming these dates. In 1998, Donald Rumsfeld told Congress that Iran would have an intercontinental ballistic missile that could hit the U.S. by 2003.
That was Rumsfeld's report?
Yeah, and that was 2000. Okay, and let's review. It's now 2012. And I only mention all of this because, hey, this is... Once again, we're being told that at least Netanyahu is freaking out. He's telling the world that this is something that, my God, we're going to face real soon. You know, I mean, like, oh my God, let's freak out over this. All right, I tell you what, we're going to take another commercial break. Come back and just continue giving a synopsis, a recap of this weekend, and a perspective into those points. Very complicated show today.
Well, I'm going to have to put some high points in it.
Oh, yeah, well, definitely.
Just because I have to.
Yeah, well, you know, even though it's raining, there's no reason to be bummed out, people.
Oh, it's beautiful. Air's getting clean. There was a wonderful pair of probably year-old golden eagles with me on Sunday, so they're good and healthy.
That's the report from nature is the bald eagles are thriving. I hear
eagles too.
I hear they're buying condos in Florida.
Well, you know they winter there, and they have
winter
every
there.
year.
Yeah.
And even the loons do too. The loons also go down just dressed like drab tourists, and then when they come back here, that's when they put their white rings or white ties and red rings on and go looking. If you don't know what a loon looks like, it's kind of like a penguin, and it looks like it's wearing a tuxedo all the time. They're very fancy.
Actually, I can't place it. Do they have long feathers on the top of their heads?
They are water birds. They're one of the best divers.
Are they crane-like?
Kind of like a cross between a crane and a duck, maybe.
Right.
But they're swimmers.
Look, I guess I could just Google image
But
a
they're
loon
beautiful.
later instead of using up this valuable airtime. That's kind of sad, just because we're not really a talk news show, but we end up talking. We're actually here to report the news, so let's cut to this commercial and come back and, you know. All right, thank you for listening. You want to hear this today. I worked very hard this weekend to get a whole bunch of information condensed into an hour and a half. That's all we got. We just used up 13 minutes. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
When you start talking about manipulating the environment, we have treaties that go back to the mid-'70s that forbid this, number one, as weapons of war.
So the perfection of weather modification took place, but it became apparent that using weather modification for wartime purposes was not acceptable to the United States government and other nations of the world. So therefore, the NMOD Treaty came into being and was signed by the United States government after passing Congress. The reason it was signed and implemented was because it would ban warfare, weather modification techniques and use during times of war.
Almost all of our treaties that we've signed, including the non-proliferation, counter-proliferation treaties, chemical treaties, the ones that were signed recently, last few years, back maybe a decade now, I guess time goes. But they had domestic exemptions, and so does the environmental treaty. Where you can do whatever you want in your own territorial boundaries. When you start manipulating weather in one part of the planet, it doesn't look on the ground and say, oh yeah, wait, this is the boundary of a political boundary. It fails to recognize those. So you start to talk about geophysics and manipulating the planet itself. Then it's a question of those kinds of exemptions shouldn't even be allowed.
Meteorology and the military have a very long history, as I said, and it goes into the strategic advantage that multiplies your traditional force, that is your armament, into using nature to your advantage as well.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard.
Thank you for joining us again. Here we are back talking about a world on the verge of war. Very busy weekend for warmongers. What do we got here? Kaylin and I were discussing during the break that this thing with China is not new, and she had some good information. What was that?
Oh, that this little argument between Japan and China. China has declared sovereignty, and I'm not exactly sure what their legal standing is to do that. But now Japan has decided they're feeling kind of tough, and they want to muscle in and take over because they're not recognizing China's sovereignty over these islands, these properties. So I think that strategically the timing on this, because it's been going on round in circles in the media for about 2 or 3 months now, but this whole issue in general has been heating up about the last 7. It seems as if they're going to try to come to some sort of a head, like they're forcing something to happen. And I'm wondering if this isn't some posturing that both nations are interested in the outcome to see where the U.S. is going to draw the line on this, whose side they're going to take. And it would be an opportunistic time for China and Japan to try to negotiate some financial benefits, to tax the U.S. again and see what the U.S. is willing to offer in exchange for the peace.
Well, they're not happy in China. Protests in China are growing over Japan's assertion of control of disputed islands. Thousands of Chinese besieged the Japanese embassy in Beijing on Saturday, hurling rocks, eggs, and bottles, with protests reported in other major cities over the territorial dispute in the East China Sea. Paramilitary police with shields and batons barricaded the embassy, holding back and occasionally fighting with slogan, chanting, flag-waving protesters who at times appeared to be trying to storm the building. "Return our islands, Japanese devils, get out." Yeah, I guess that's the loose translation, but okay, yeah, let's keep it rolling because, boy, I mean, we can go back and touch on any one of these, but I just want to continue with the scope of what's been going on here. The Japanese ambassador to China died mysteriously. I mean, I could read that. Here, what the hell? I will. Yesterday, we described that anti-Japan sentiment across China was spreading like wildfire, with some even suggesting it is time to declare war on Japan. In retaliation for the unprecedented shift in Japan's status quo vis-a-vis the Senkaku Islands. Today, it has gotten even worse. From Reuters, they report Chinese police used pepper spray, tear gas, and water cannon to break up anti-Japan protesters in China. But then I hear, where's the part about the Chinese ambassador? Japan's ambassador designate to China, Shinichi Nashimiya, died on Sunday in a Tokyo hospital, the foreign ministry said, 3 days after he was found unconscious on a Tokyo street. Doctors were looking into the cause of the mysterious of his death, but no go yet. Okay, well, I didn't want to go. I just wanted to touch on that and keep rolling here. Go ahead.
Can I add just a little bit here?
Sure.
This is in the Irish Times, and what they're saying is relations between China and Japan have long been edgy, but Tokyo's decision to buy the uninhabited islands from a Japanese family has brought anger to the boil in China, prompting Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihiro Noda to call for measures to protect Japanese nationals in China. So there's our answer. These are uninhabited islands that Japan is trying to buy from a Japanese family. I'm going to look a little farther while you go on and see if I can find out who this family is and why China thinks the property is theirs.
No, that'd be awesome because, I mean, seriously, to keep moving on with Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, told Meet the Press Iran will have a nuke in 6-7 months. Sorry, I read that actually. Here, this is what I wanted to read. Warships from more than 25 countries. This is one of the news that really freaked me out. Warships from more than 25 countries, including the United States, Britain, France, Saudi Arabia. That's kind of weird, huh? I didn't know Saudi Arabia had warships. The UAE launching a military exercise in the Straits of Hormuz. And for that, I've got an article. Son of a...
Did you see that there were 7 NATO ally or troops killed in Afghanistan this weekend?
I did, and you want to know the sad thing? I said in comparison to the scope of things, that wasn't I'm glad you brought that up. Because, like, troops get killed all the time. Nobody, it doesn't, like, necessarily start world conflicts. I mean, if that was the case, we've had many troops killed, anyhow, this article is from Sean Raymond, the defense correspondent, a defense correspondent. He reports that battleships, aircraft carriers, minesweepers, and submarines from 25 nations are converging on the strategically important Strait of Hormuz in an unprecedented show of force as Israel and Iran move towards the brink of war. Amazing. Western leaders are convinced that Iran will retaliate to any attack by attempting to mine or blockade. Isn't that just insane? To any attack by attempting, they're only going to do an exercise. Okay, now why are the Straits of Hormuz important? Just want to touch on that real quick. The Straits of Hormuz are actually just about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. It snakes up underneath Iran and into Iraq, into what they call the Persian Gulf. Apparently, approximately 35% of the world's petroleum traded by sea, with 18 million barrels of oil every day, goes through those straits. This is why this is kind of one of the freak out moments for all the people here in the United States that have been listening to the war drums beating for Iran and think that that's a good idea. Look, I have to warn you, this is not Iraq. This will not be the same thing. You will pay higher gas prices, $8, $10, maybe $20 at the pump. Think twice about this, people. Those are the estimates. In any case, the Straits of Hormuz is one of the world's most congested international waterways. In preparation for any preemptive or retaliatory action by Iran, warships from more than 25 countries, including the United States, Britain, France, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. What the heck's the UAE? I should know that.
United
Arab Emirates.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Arab. That's all you had to say.
Yep.
All right. Good psychic intuition there. We put it together apart from fact, apart from just like the pulling it out of our. I need a better.
Larger consciousness.
Serendipity. The war games are the largest ever undertaken in the region, and they will practice tactics in how to breach an Iranian blockade of the strait, and the force will also undertake counter-mining drills. The multinational naval force of the Gulf includes 3 U.S. Nimitz-class carrier groups, each of which has more aircraft than the entire complement of the Iranian Air Force. The carriers are supported by at least 12 battleships, including ballistic missile cruisers, frigates, destroyers, and assault ships carrying thousands of U.S. Marines and Special Forces. Ooh. The British component consists of 4 British minesweepers and the Royal Fleet Auxiliary Cardigan Bay, a logistics vessel, HMS Diamond, a brand new billion-dollar type destroyer. They go on to name a bunch of ships here. In addition, commanders will also simulate destroying Indian... Okay, now they're going to do a lot of exercises, basically, that, were they actually to go to war with Iran, that this is what they would have to encounter. And so, it's a show of force telling...
Have you ever heard cats howling at each other before they start fighting?
Well, men like to call that saber rattling.
Okay.
And then, yes. The more dignified term for that is saber rattling.
Pardon me, men.
But yes, it basically amounts to 2 groups going,
exactly.
Or dogs growling.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody moves.
Yeah, and really, Iran's the cat, and the UN in America is the dogs. I mean, just saying, because they overwhelmingly,
absolutely,
they're bigger, stronger, have bigger bites, bigger mouths. Okay, now here. But Leon Panetta, and I heard about this, the U.S. Defense Secretary warned that Iranian attempts to exercise control over the Strait of Hormuz could be met with force. He said, this is the Defense Secretary of our country here, said, the Iranians need to understand that the United States and the international community are going to hold them directly responsible for any disruption of shipping in that region by Iran, or for that matter, by its surrogates. Mr. Panetta said that the United States was fully prepared for all contingencies. Yeah, I wanted to add, because this article is not mentioning General Petraeus, who is now the head of the CIA. I got to find the article that reported he basically said that wouldn't be a good idea, which is kind of, I always perceive Petraeus as a guy that sort of went along to get along and took his promotions, and it's really odd that he would say that. I mean, maybe it's just a disclaimer, because any intelligent, well-informed person on this issue, and you would imagine Petraeus would be, General Petraeus headed our forces in the Middle East for quite some time. He said it would be a bad idea to launch an attack on Iran. So there you go. Let's move it along here. That was the warships from 25 countries. A third U.S. aircraft, the CVN-74 Stennis carrier, is en route to Iran with an estimated time of arrival in about 10 days. I'm never really going to wait till that gets there. What's the difference? And finally, a potential catalyst to this light is this whole mess on fire. Iran's Revolutionary Guard announcing that its troops are now on the ground in Syria. I mean, this is pretty amazing, though, because Iran's Revolutionary Guard to announce that they're in Syria. Syria and Iran are allied because of their Shiite affiliations. The whole Middle East Muslim world, which includes Arabs and Persians, Islam is broke down into two factions, Shiite and Sunni. I just got to mention this because it helps us debunk the propaganda. A lot of people don't understand that relationship over there, and I got to keep harping on that. Well, now look, from Reuters, they report members of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps are providing non-military assistance in Syria, and Iran may get involved militarily if its closest ally comes under attack. Commanders-in-Chief Mohammed Ali Jafari said on Sunday. Now look, Syria is under attack by rebel forces with strong Wahhabist al-Qaeda connections. Many of them are Wahhabists, many of them are al-Qaeda. They are receiving funding from the UN and the United States. They're to attack Syria. We can't put boots on the ground ourselves, otherwise this is going to flare up something with Iran, clearly. So we've been doing it by proxy. Been reporting on that all week. So now Iran, I guess Jafari's statement is the first official acknowledgement that Iran has a military presence on the ground in Syria. So at least they're being open about it. We're still not. Where an 18-month-old uprising has left tens of thousands dead already. Western countries and Syrian opposition groups have long suspected Iran has troops in Syria, while Iran has continually denied this until now. Let me just scan through this article. This is kind of interesting. It has next satellite photos somewhere confirming beyond a reasonable doubt that weapons of mass destruction are being prepared for usage, and a preemptive war is the only way not only to preserve peace but to be awarded the... Well, what the hell is this? Geez, I don't even know. I shouldn't have read that. I'm not quite sure what they're talking about, but let me... Sorry, I was just skating through to make sure I didn't miss anything in this article here. Caitlin, what do you think?
Well, I think, I don't know. I'd like to kind of find out what's going on with the financial crisis overseas. Did we hear anything else from Germany or the seaboard?
Let's take a break, and I'll come back, and I'll read on that, because... There's a lot of good information on that. I'm all ready for you, Kate.
Okay.
Let's tell you what. I'll take a break and then I'll pull up the article here. But we'll be right back. You're listening to Breaking Down the News, reporting on a lot of impacting news. But we're taking it in stride because we read this stuff all the time. But you should really pay attention to the show. I mean, wow, it's chock filled with information. Spend a lot of work going through the news so you don't have to. You get it all condensed and spoon-fed to you while you do the dishes, or hopefully you're doing something else productive right now. You're not taking a picnic if you live in River West. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Experiments have shown that less than 1 minute after the viewer begins to watch television, the brain switches from beta level consciousness, associated with active and logical thought, to alpha level, which is associated with passive acceptance and suggestibility. This is why advertisers spend billions of dollars a year on commercials, as well as product placement within TV shows. Political messages are implanted in fictional TV programs as the relaxed meditative state of the viewer is receptive to the programming.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard.
All right, we are back. Thank you for, sorry about that little silence there. All right, look, I just have to now I have to play the news thing just because it gets me in the proper frame of mind here.
But I can't say something silly now.
Oh, yeah, you can. Boy, that is loud.
Yes, it was loud.
This just in, that is loud.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about QE3.
Yes.
This is let's maybe first, for those that don't know, let's break down the concept of why the two letters Q and E are very bad together, because they're a shortened version for quantitative easing. What is quantitative easing? I can summarize that just real quick. It's a fancy term to throw you off, to keep you from knowing that the government is printing money, fabricating money out of nothing in order to pay off banksters, people that own central banks and private banks, for their financial debacles and imprudent financial fiscal irresponsibility. Mainly they rob people, and then the derivatives that they use are totally, once illegal, now they're deregulated, so they're going crazy. So you're paying off their gambling derivative debts, is what you're doing with quantitative easing. What is not happening is this money is not going to our banks to be loaned to us. Why? If it did, your interest rates would go up, and we can't have that, because that's how they're keeping hyperinflation down, by keeping interest rates low. And there you go. So this article comes from Mike Adams, the health ranger, and I think he did a really good job. And I'll quote him: "This is it, folks. The final chapter of America's great financial blowout has begun. The Federal Reserve's decision to announce infinite quantitative easing has now put us all on the path of infinite money creation. With up to $85 billion in monthly money creation, including $40 billion a month in purchases of mortgage-backed securities, the Fed is now wholly committed to the creation of new fake money to cover old fake debts. Mathematically, this financial death spiral can only end in sheer catastrophe. This massive money creation tactic is the Fed's last-ditch plan to desperately try to save the economy. Quote, I think the country should have panicked over what the Fed is saying, that we have lost control. That was Ron Paul warning us. He says, and the only thing we have left is massively creating new money out of thin air, which has not worked before and is not going to work this time. Peter Schiff, one of our own homeboys here in Wisconsin, His father tragically actually still in prison, I believe, because he dared to challenge the IRS.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he tried to bust out with narc him out, and that didn't work too well for him. Still sitting in prison. I mean, really. Anyhow, his son, Peter, which runs the Euro-Pacific Capital Management, some firm, a financial firm, he says this is a disastrous monetary policy. It's kamikaze monetary policy. Kamikaze meaning that when the Japanese killed their own pilots trying to take down our ships. And, well, Peter Schiff is most likely right. It is suicide to just spend forever. This is the weird thing. This is what differentiates QE3, which they're not even going to call it that. We're calling it that. QE1 and 2 had a cap limit. I mean, they basically said we're going to allow this many billions, and this is what we're going to pay the banks who are supposedly too big to fail. I mean, actually, they were too big to bail. That didn't stop us because most of the American public does not really understand financial issues. They don't understand the creation of money. We got swindled. And here's how it's very complicated. I mean, this isn't conspiratorial. It's evident when you see it. Basically, these banksters, combination banker gangsters, they have used these gambling debts known as derivatives, tied them into all of our investment vehicles, which are, they're just securities, financial packages containing pension funds and all sorts of things, properties. They're pretty amazing. They could be almost anything. And in any case, they screw up our financial system, and the money that we spend on stimulus isn't stimulus. It goes to pay these guys because the banks don't loan it to us. Well, it's steal from the poor to give to the rich. Quantitative easing, you see, is essentially the Federal Reserve creating money and then handing it out to the richest banks. Meanwhile, all that new money floating around erodes the value of the dollars in the hands of the working taxpayers. So basically, when your dollar goes down, you're getting a cut in pay at work and you don't even know it. See, that's why we don't react. We make, say you make $7-8 an hour, if some more, hopefully, but on average, you're like, all right, I didn't get a pay cut. I'm still making $7 an hour. What you don't understand is when your grocery bills go up, when your fuel costs go up, your daycare costs increase, and utility bills creep ever skyward, you're getting a cut in pay. Your dollar is not buying or paying for as much. But the rich banksters are simultaneously rolling in free Fed cash, and instead of actually lending this money out and doing something useful with it, they crank up their own executive bonuses to make sure they get paid while the rest of the country and the economy crumbles. And why? It's simple. Because people are crooks, and if they get handed $40 billion a month in free money, they're just going to grin and say, how can we get more? I mean, that's the credo of the banks. They're like crackheads going more and more. When you're out of a job and looking for honest work just to put a roof over your head, the bank is repossessing your house and screaming, give me more money. When you can't make that car payment and you have to start riding the bus with the minimum wage masses, the bank screams, give me more money. When you're trying to put healthy food on the table for your own family and you see food prices ratcheting higher and higher as the value of your hard-earned dollar erodes, what do the banks want? Even more money from you. It's all they know is take. The top global banks do not operate on compassion or benefit to society, fairness, or even anything resembling lawful activity. They simply hornswoggle their way into receiving all the money you can give them. Mortgage money, bailout money, government money, and of course Fed money. That's the game. You see, screw the whole world and everybody in it, and then ask for more.
Okay, but I hope people understand while they're listening to this, and we can break this down even a little farther. What we're talking about here is that the Federal Reserve has decided to print more paper. And the reason I refer to it as that, for those of you who don't know, and some of you may not know, that we're not on the gold standard and haven't been since, I think, the 70s.
1972, 68 to 72. Nixon took us off the gold standard.
So what that means is that the dollar that was supposed to be worth so much in gold, it was literally a paper note the value, backed by the value of the same quantity of gold. We don't have that standard anymore. Now basically what we've gotten into is this situation where they're just printing paper.
Fiat currency, they call it.
Okay, so basically how this, what Michael was saying, how this impacts us is that the more paper that's out there, the less value it has, because there's nothing backing up this paper. Really, the only thing this paper has going for it is that we all go to work to get these pieces of paper or to get credit for this amount of paper, and that's all. So when other people have more paper and of just sickening amounts of paper, that makes our paper worth less.
Well, the question becomes, how long will this go on? I mean, until the whole system suddenly collapses due to its own corruption and greed? All such systems eventually collapse, of course. The Federal Reserve is essentially pushing a global Ponzi scheme where new money is created in order to keep old money from being lost. The problem with all Ponzi schemes is that their very survival depends on continually expanding the money base upon which they operate. And since mathematics tells us that no currency system can be expanded to infinity, every such Ponzi-like scheme must by definition come crashing down. We've seen it time and time again. Of course, Zimbabwe cranked up its currency into hyperinflation, then collapsed. So did Argentina, Chile, Peru, the Weimar German Republic, which the old German before World War II.
Right.
Wheeling a barrel full of money for a loaf of bread was the phrase. In 1992, the largest denomination of the papier mark was 50,000. A year later, it was 100 trillion. This means that by December 1923, the exchange rate with the U.S. dollar was 4.2 trillion to 1. It's estimated that by November 1923, the yearly inflation rate was considered 325 million% ahead. Now, look, Yugoslavia, during the height of hyperinflation of December 1994, inflation was increased by a rate of 100% per day. Could you imagine going through that? Every day you're losing 100% of your value? Jeez. Peru, the Peruvian government decided again to replace the currency, this time with the Nuevo Sol, at a rate of 1 billion to 1. Now that's an amazing, when you do a currency swap, basically it's kind of like this. If you had a $100 bill, you get back a $10 bill of the new currency.
Wow.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
You get to turn in your old money if you're lucky. I mean, that's like the upside.
If you're lucky. Well, think of how much the Mexican peso was worth. Like 100 it was what, 1,000 pesos to a U.S. dollar.
They
or
actually
something? It's
climbed.
ridiculous. Yeah, no, I know.
Just like the euro.
Actually, historically they have.
Isn't
yes.
that funny? But no,
Yeah.
you make
but
a
it's
great
the same
point.
idea.
It's the same idea. And especially it's important to understand, if you're listening out there, that all currencies are pegged to the U.S. dollar, meaning they're like financially attached to it and set by what everything's. What's the yen? What's the yuan? What's the euro in relation to the dollar?
And it used to be actually to the British pound. And it only switched just recently. In 10, 15 years, I think it switched. It's been in our lifetimes, and everybody who would be old enough to be listening, in your lifetime, this switch has been made. So, but in some deference to credit to Chancellor Merkel, I think in her own way she has tried to prevent the bailouts and the problems with the euro from getting to be this dramatic by capping their expenditures, capping what they would put into Greece to put them back together. And maybe she has some wisdom.
Well, a global debt dump is inevitable. The final phase of all this will be radically accelerated, of course, by the dumping of U.S. government debt by other central banks in China, Japan, and elsewhere. When they see the writing on the wall, they'll stage a sell-off. That sell-off will send shockwaves through the financial sector, causing investors to flee the dollar and ultimately resulting in the Fed creating even more fiat currency to buy back U.S. debt in a last-ditch effort to prevent a national bankruptcy. This is the point where you get into the Zimbabwe territory, where the government is forced to issue new dollars with the trade-in value of 1 million to 1. And I can't even conceive that. And where the Fed becomes the last buyer of U.S. debt, I mean, this is the weirdest part is basically we've sold the debt to the world,
Right.
then they sold it back to us.
Even less.
It's kind of like this pile of dirt that you sweep under one rug and then sweep under another, but that dirt ain't going away because
Exactly.
it's tied financially to all these investments, which are tied to all your pensions, the stock market,
Exactly.
every freaking thing.
Which means that your pension won't be able to buy you health care or anything else. And the government is not doing its citizenship a favor by allowing this to continue. And the problem is only worsened by the amount of spending that the U.S. government does domestically. But you can start to see here how important the decisions that those guys are making becomes. You know, about whether they're making tax cuts, about whether they're going to have more fair share taxation. These are the types of decisions that could actually improve the situation and or cap it, but from a different angle.
Well, now we're now seeing, basically this new QE3, or this new bailout becomes an infinite bailout. Or
It's not going to last.
It cannot last.
They're going to meet again in 3 months. They do. They meet 4 times a year. So when they meet again, there'll be another decision.
And we're entering now into the fall where a lot of financial transactions have to be wrapped up for the year.
Well, it's interesting that, they've changed the marketplace so much, especially with the Black Friday and stuff, so a lot of companies are looking to make up their profit in the last quarter of the year. And so it depends. I guess it depends on which marketplace you're in. But overall, I think because of increases in spending because of holiday seasons, and that starts in September, I think they do look for the final quarter to be the strong shower and the predominant feeling for the year.
And it's amazing because you have to tie in the geopolitical situation, financial situation to the elections coming up in America. Obama, from his administration, it historically benefits a president to have a war before the election because then people vote for the incumbent president.
Yeah, not to shake up the establishment.
But I hear that the neocons and Romney, they dropped the ball. They should have shut up and let Obama take the heat on his statement this weekend regarding war. And instead, Romney dropped the ball. He can't even follow. He's got some of the world's greatest campaign guys.
Marketing. He has the best advertising firms in marketing that I have seen in quite some time.
He does, but he's so inept. This is like, it's a pity.
I honestly don't watch. I can't stand it.
He's a goofy fool. He always has been the college prankster. If you ask people that know him, he's the kind of guy that would run around with the lampshade, half drunk, acting like a complete dweeb.
But I think what's interesting to note here is that on the global theater, how the U.S. election time seems to be getting, the rest of the nations are kind of getting hip to the fact that this is a good time to start to try to mess with the United States. It's right around election time. So this is a great time for China and Japan to be, having this little Garfarkle situation going on so they can kind of mess with some political pressure and some heat and, see what they can get away with.
Personally, I'm always amazed at how long corrupt institutions can prop up their monetary scams, so I tend to think a full-blown meltdown might require years to take place, but the banking debt crisis is likely to happen much sooner, potentially even this year after this election. That's not an official prediction, however. It's just a cautious warning to be safe rather than sorry. Historically, my own predictions tend to be 1 to 3 years too early. I began, saying back in 2008 that, and it was potentially true that the TARP bailout, had that not occurred, this thing's been looming over our head. It's like the sword of Damocles.
Actually, since Nixon took us off the gold standard, this crisis has been. We've been heading towards this steadily. It's just a question of the speed changing. Now it's obviously at a run. But they predict, because the way the system the U.S. has set up, it doesn't work. And they predicted that back when Nixon made this very bold move. It was actually ingenious of him. Or I shouldn't say ingenious. It was extremely insightful and very, very far-sighted of him to recognize this was the only way the country was going to work. And then to just let smarter heads figure it out 30 years.
Well, for the next 3 decades, they spent, our economy was, our biggest export was the U.S. dollar, a fiat currency at that point, and bubble economies.
Exactly.
Where you overvalue the market value of any given commodity, housing, whatever, tech stocks,
Exactly.
any commodity, and then you just drop the ball when the reality comes to bear. I'm Michael Wordsworth.
Caitlin Redding.
And you're listening to Breaking Down the News. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. When you're out on the road, you want to know them tires are touching the pavement. You want rubber to concrete. When you're out there, you want to drive knowing that you're in control of the wheel. Well, what about your government? Don't you think your government should have its reality check and the rubber hit the pavement? What's going to put the brakes on the rampant fiscal spending, budget problems? It's not the voter, it's not the constituents, it won't be the leaders. The problem ain't the leaders, it's the followers. Get behind the wheel, America. It's like the roaring 20s all over again. The stock markets are well above 12,000. It's as if nothing could go wrong, or could it? The truth is, the American economy is not as strong as it actually appears. The job reports for June were down, manufacturing down. The actual CPI rate, if you adjusted it correctly, would show that unemployment is at a staggering 22%. 46 million Americans are on food stamps, and guess who runs that program? Not the government, no, Goldman Sachs. I'm telling you, the situation here is more abrupt than we think. Wake up, America. We have hard times coming. And we need to prepare for what lies ahead.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard.
We have so much news today, we're just going to have to rapid fire through it. Let's cover 3 incidences of bomb threats that we just mentioned off the top of our head. Basically, if you might not have caught it this weekend, there was a threat at UT, Texas. Apparently, Caitlin, this is unbelievable. The University of Texas has a nuclear reactor under it.
What?
I swear.
Wait. Why should I be surprised? This is the home of the Bushes. I should not be surprised.
It is so freaky. I can't even, what are you I'm not sure if it's a test reactor that they use to study from, or if it's a frequent power source. But somebody called in and made a bomb threat sounding like Ahmed the terrorist. He was like...
From Jeff Dunham? How wonderful.
Right. Like, I have a bomb... I have placed it in your college. I am going to kill you. You know, so...
LSU had a bomb threat, too. Now I can't find the headline, but apparently they had one, too.
LSU, where is LSU?
I want to say that's Louisiana State is what I'm thinking.
University, huh?
Yeah.
Crap, and then who else had the bomb threat in Ireland?
No, there was this suspicious fire in a Dublin high school. But I'll have to pull that back up. Bomb threats, people. What is it with this violence? I just don't get it.
I get it. Well, it would take me a long time to explain it, but I think pretty much everybody understands. You got people that are disgruntled. You got people on psych meds being driven crazy by the very things that are supposed to help make them sane. You've got limited resources, limited jobs. People are mad. They don't know where to turn their anger to. This weekend, 70 protesters were arrested in New York City.
Oh, yes. The first year of Occupy Wall Street. The
anniversary?
Yeah, first year anniversary. I've got here. Let's see how the Irish Times decides to cover this. They say dozens arrested on occupancy anniversary, and let's see what they have to tell us. Tell us more. Tell us more. Let's see. And this is dozens arrested in occupancy anniversary. More than 100 arrests were reported today, the first anniversary of Occupy Wall Street movement, as protesters converged near the New York Stock Exchange and tried to block access to the exchange. Protesters had planned to converge from several directions and form a human wall around the stock exchange to protest what they said was the unfair economic system that benefited the rich and corporations at the expense of ordinary citizens. Well, geez, Michael, isn't that what we've been talking about all afternoon here? Police officers and protesters squared off at various points, with protesters briefly blocking intersections and pavements before being dispersed and sometimes arrested. The police appeared prepared to counter the protester-planned blockade with one of their own, ringing the streets and sidewalks leading toward the exchange with metal barricades and asking for identification from workers seeking to gain access. Meanwhile, the protesters marched through the streets waving banners and were accompanied by bands playing Happy Birthday. Oh, that's a nice touch. Police officers repeatedly warned protesters they could be arrested if they did not keep moving. Most of those arrested were charged with disorderly conduct. At one point at Broad Street and Beaver Street, a police commander grabbed a man from the crowd standing on a corner. Protesters tried to pull the man back, but officers searched the crowd, wrestling the man free and placing him in handcuffs. One of the more tense episodes took place as several hundred people marched slowly along Broadway. As part of the group passed Wall Street, a line of officers separated the march into two parts. A few moments later, the officers approached a man who had been loudly yelling objections about the metal police barricades that cordoned off Wall Street. The officers grabbed the man, who began shouting, "I did nothing wrong," then removed him. As they were leading away, line officers pushed a large crowd of people, including news photographers, away from the arrest.
Thank you for that report, Caitlin.
124 people were arrested.
You can have your gun or you can have your medical marijuana, but the Obama administration now says you can't have both. This article from the Washington Times by Valerie Richardson. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is in the crosshairs for a recent memo prohibiting gun merchants from selling firearms to anyone who uses marijuana, including those with state-issued medical marijuana cards. An open letter dated September 21st from Arthur Herbert, ATF Assistant Director for Enforcement Programs and Services, reported that, quote, any person who uses or is addicted to marijuana, regardless of whether his or her state has passed legislation authorizing marijuana use for medicinal purposes, is an unlawful user of or addicted to a controlled substance and is prohibited by federal law from possessing firearms or ammunition. That didn't sit well with Montana Attorney General Steve Bullock, who fired off a letter this week to Attorney General Eric H. Holder Jr., saying that the policy raises, quote, serious legal issues under the Second Amendment and the Equal Protection and Due Processes clauses of the Fifth Amendment. The conflict illustrates the contradictory state of affairs between the states and federal government on the subject of medical marijuana. 16 states and the District of Columbia have passed medical marijuana laws, a situation the Justice Department has agreed to tolerate despite continuing to enforce federal laws banning marijuana use. Where the agency draws the line is often a source of confusion. The September 21 letter was issued in response to gun sellers who asked the agency for guidance because buyers were showing them medical marijuana cards as identification.
Oh, there you go.
Mr. Bullock blasted the ATF for failing to consult with state officials before issuing the directive, saying a cooperative approach, quote, would be much better than the type of unilateral proclamation represented by the ATF letter. Critics contend that the law unfairly discriminates against marijuana users because patients who take other controlled substances, such as Oxycontin, have no such restrictions. In his letter, Mr. Bullock pointed out federal laws also allow those who are prescribed controlled substances by a physician to possess or buy firearms and ammunition. So if you get your drugs from the drug companies, you can have a gun. If you get your drugs from those nasty organic farmers, no gun for you. Okay, I mean, the article goes on, but...
I'm sorry, but I've got to ask you, has there ever been any documented case of aggression where someone was stoned? Honestly? Honestly, I mean, some people say, and I've never seen it proven, that some of these guys with their guns, if they go in the gun towers or the movie theaters, are hopped up on something like amphetamine, speed, something, Red Bull, whatever. But have you ever heard of someone doing anything like that with a gun and a joint?
I have not. I have not. Usually marijuana smokers are portrayed as pacifists. Something about it just makes you you just want to eat pizza and chill out.
Have a Coke.
Have a Coke. I'm going to keep the news rolling here. Stay tuned. The White House says it's unconstitutional to strike down the NDAA. This is kind of interesting. The White House says it's unconstitutional to strike down the National Defense Authorization Act. I'm going to read this article that came from the mainstream Business Insider Law and Order. The Obama administration had some harsh words Friday after a federal judge appointed by Obama said the government doesn't have a right to indefinitely detain anyone even remotely associated with terrorist groups.
Excellent. This is excellent.
Well, it's also...
No, it's good, Michael, because with the Homeland Security, remember, they could hold you on suspicion indefinitely without representation, without Miranda rights, without...
No, you're absolutely right. I'm just in shock because I'm looking at this picture of Obama that they have with the article, and I'm like, you signed it into effect on New Year's Eve when nobody was looking, and you said you wouldn't. You lied, and now it's kind of funny, I mean, to actually see the administration come out and say...
no, Obama wanted that. That's one thing I know about Obama is he did want to look at reversing. He's been approached
well, maybe
years
because
ago.
it's been a political... he's a constitutional lawyer. And so this has been a political, not good for him.
Well, most people think it was wrong for Bush to put this in under Homeland Security, this right to keep somebody detained without identifying that they have the person.
Well, scared the hell out of a lot of people. The idea is just crazy because the way PDD 51 is already in existence, and I believe it's covered in the John Warner Defense Act already, which is bizarre, and how all these are linked. That exists in the Patriot Act as well. Here's how it works. They cannot indefinitely detain a U.S. citizen, but if you are declared a terrorist, you lose your citizen status.
Or suspected. You don't even have to be declared.
Okay, just like the million people that are on the no-fly list,
right.
Some of them 5-year-old children,
right.
Seriously.
Or dead people.
And they can't fly, or dead people, or dead people. Just pointing out a no-fly list. And you find out you're on that list, and you can only wonder why. Well, this is amazing. Judge Catherine B. Forrest permanently blocked the government from enforcing the National Defense Authorization Act, claiming it was too vague and would have a chilling effect on free speech. Oh, to say the least.
Yes.
And now the Department of Justice is calling Forrest's ruling unprecedented, arguing that this is funny that the Department of Justice is arguing that the government has long had the authority to detain anyone it deems to be a threat in the country or in the county. Deems a threat to the county. This article is misspelled. Country. The Wall Street Journal's law blog reported Friday. So that's what the Justice Department says that... what are you talking about? We've always been able to detain you without a...
Well, that's true to some extent. Secret police and other people...
Right. There's what they have to admit, and then there's what we argue about in our esoteric educational circles
sure.
on whether am I free or not? I wonder. I think I'm free because...
I can hear a tree fall in the forest.
Yeah, this is honestly.
I know, it's really ridiculous.
And it's kind of funny. Well, Forrest's ruling. You said I could hear a tree fall in the forest. Well, Judge Forrest, that's so funny.
Sorry.
Well, the Forrest ruling oversteps the court's authority and infringes on Obama's power to act as commander-in-chief, according to the government's court filings. The Justice Department requested a stay of the ruling pending appeal, which Forrest denied Friday.
Yay.
Carl Meyer, an attorney for the plaintiffs in the case, has hailed the decision as a huge and historic victory for democracy.
It is.
Saying he believes any challenges from Obama administration will be shot down.
Oh, they're not going to challenge it. He wanted this. Obama, I remember him saying something about this once. One time, very remote. I have a good memory for these kinds of trivial things, but he was questioned on this, and he was looking at wanting to make some changes because this Patriot Act, the Homeland Security, does a lot of bad things.
It's redundant, actually, because
Yes,
it's
that
already
too.
there. It's already there.
Right,
There's a
exactly.
great book out there called How Would a Patriot Act? It's
Wonderful.
John Green.
One of those wonderful guys.
Yeah, the guy who wrote it was, of course, in the government for a long time.
I have something I need to read.
Here, let me give you some news music to
Okay.
denote that we're going from one subject to the next. Here you
Okay.
go. And now, Caitlin Redding with the news.
Everybody get ready to scream in happiness.
Yay!
Wisconsin judge strikes down most of anti-union law. All you people that went to Madison, hooray for you. Guess what? A Wisconsin judge has struck down large parts of the Republican Governor Scott Walker's controversial law curbing collective bargaining rights of public employees. Woohoo! On Friday, Judge Juan Colas. I wonder if that has any influence on his...
He's reversing it?
Overturned the law as it applies to city, county, and school district workers, saying it violates their freedom of speech and association. Woohoo! Judge Colas' order exempts public employees at the state level. Oh, Governor Walker has vowed to appeal the order, saying it was issued by a liberal activist judge. I was warning. I saw that name, Juan Colas, and I thought, yeah, here we go. Walker will likely seek to freeze the order during the appeal. He is going to lose. Woohoo! All righty. Hey, talk about state government in Illinois. Chicago mayor threatens lawsuit after teachers extend strike. Interesting. Public school teachers in Chicago, if you didn't know, have voted to continue their strike, prompting Mayor Rahm Emanuel to threaten legal action to force their return to the job. A deal to end the strike was reached on Friday, but teacher delegates voted down the proposal in a Sunday vote. Chicago Teachers Union President Karen Lewis, yay Karen, said delegates want more time to consult with rank and file members. Well, heck, that's the democratic process. What's wrong with that? Karen Lewis quotes, clearly a contract is always a set of negotiations. No sides are ever completely happy, but our members are not happy and they want to have an opportunity to talk to their members to see. They still want to know if there's anything more they can get. We've told them basically that we feel that this is the deal that the board had. They still want to have an opportunity to discuss it. When you have expectations of democracy, well, then that's what happens. So people have exercised that, end quote. Sunday's vote came on one day after thousands of teachers and their supporters rallied in Chicago's Union Park for the largest protest since the strike began. The standoff has centered around education reforms, including a proposed teacher evaluation process the union says relies too heavily, oh my goodness, on standardized testing. In response, Emanuel has called the strike illegal and said he will seek a court injunction to bring it to the end. Well, we know that's not going to happen, but of course he has to rattle his saber. I think that's the term of the day. I prefer as cats yelling at each other instead of actually fighting physically, but Michael corrected me and said when men do it, it's called rattling sabers. I wonder what it's called when women do it. Rattling pots and pans? Who knows? Okay. Oh, here's more bad news about NATO. We don't want to hear this. U.S. evacuates personnel from Tunisia and Sudan as film unrest spreads. Well, we know about that. Wow, we almost came to blows on an argument about that around the fire circle on Friday evening.
What was the issue about?
I don't want to be disrespectful or pointing anybody out by
they're not listening.
But we have.
I'm not sure anybody's listening.
We have a person who is a Roman Catholic, but specifies pre-Vatican II. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the Roman Catholics out there do not practice pre-Vatican, or do practice pre-Vatican II, because they don't believe in the wholesale wild changes Pope John Paul made to allow modernization of Catholic practice.
Oh, you mean Catholicism 2.0?
Yeah.
I got the upgrade.
Like Did you?
I gave up Lent for Lent.
Did you?
I'm using 3.0. It's in its beta stage, but basically you don't have to even be a practicing member anymore.
Well, there you go. So.
I mean, the only requirement they have is adherence to doctrine, and we can't even do that. All you have to do is say, yeah, I'm Catholic. That's it. You don't even need to know what the doctrine is anymore. Well, continuing on with, I just want to recap a little bit on the situation with China and Japan. According to Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, says they're headed towards war. China and Japan, China and other Asian countries could end up at war over territorial disputes if governments keep up their provocative behavior. And that, according to Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. Here's some more interesting news. Police arrested 70 Occupy protesters in New York. We went over that extensively. In a first, Indian tank brigades to defend China border. The Army's defenses on the China border will get a major offensive boost with the impending deployment of 2 tank brigades, one each in Ladakh and northern East India. This is the first time that India will deploy armored formations on the China border. Such formations, equipped with main battle tanks and BMP-2 infantry combat vehicles, are traditionally used for striking into enemy territory. It's kind of, I guess India would be on our side then, because they got Pakistan's against us. Yeah, that only makes sense. India and Pakistan are not going to ally. They're long at each other's throats. This is kind of interesting. It's kind of like the Muslim, the Shia, and the Sunni. They hate each other more than they hate us. I mean,
that's always a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, right. They
when you have so much hate that you can pick who you want to hate the most, isn't that just a warm fuzzy there, folks? Jeez.
Netanyahu, back in 1992, stated that Iran was close to having a nuclear bomb. Well, apparently, according to RonCole.com, he's still insisting that it is. He made this prediction in 92, 95, and then Donald Rumsfeld told Congress that Iran could have an intercontinental ballistic missile that could hit the U.S. by 2003, and they're still working on it. Our own CIA in 2003 and the AEIA confirmed that Iran doesn't have a bomb. All right, well, just in case, this is according to the Independent .uk, the London Independent, I believe, by Guy Adams. The U.S. deploys extra troops overseas as protests continue to spread, conceding that angry protests are likely to continue for days. The U.S. Defense Department has sent extra troops to protect personnel and property at America's diplomatic outposts across the Muslim world. The deployment was revealed as the Obama administration ordered an evacuation of all but emergency staff from Tunisia and Sudan. It advised citizens not to visit either country until anger over the controversial video mocking the Prophet Muhammad has died down. That was an interesting thing, too. The video of the Prophet Muhammad, we talked about that more out on the sidewalk than we did on the show, but basically...
Well, we talked about it a little bit on Wednesday.
Did we?
Yes, we did. But, the whole thing is, if you want to get a reaction out of that culture, this is what you do, and we know that. Especially if you want to light a fire under any of the extremists. A lot of people take offense when you mock their God, and of course this...
That's what this was. I heard it was a poorly produced high school performance.
Of a mockery.
Yeah, low budget, designed specifically to enrage Muslims, and, rightfully so. I mean,
This is low-tech terrorism.
I do not condone, the mocking of the Prophet Muhammad. I don't think it's... it would be disrespectful, and I apologize on behalf of the idiots that actually rule our country for making this video to incite anger and violence. Tolerance, politeness, those are the fulcrums of civilization.
Or at least supposed to be the fulcrums of the U.S. nation.
Indeed. Let me continue on with the news here. Iran atomic chief says explosives cut power at facility. That's according to myfoxdc.com. Explosive blast destroyed power lines to Iran's underground nuclear facility at Fordow last month. The head of the Iran's atomic agency said at a meeting of UN Atomic Agency member states on Monday. To quote Feridun Abbasi Davani, who told the 155-nation International Atomic Energy Agency gathering in a speech, he said, and I quote, on the 17th of August 2012, the electric power lines from the city of Qom to the Fordow complex were cut using explosives. Davani did not accuse anyone of sabotage, but in the past, Iran has claimed both Israel and the United States were behind the assassinations of nuclear scientists and computer viruses targeting at facilities. Sounds to me like if our countries did do it, they got nothing on them.
Yet.
Yeah, maybe you're listening to Breaking Down the News. We'll be right back.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying f*** about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time.
And now it is time to make light of the issues.
Economists, that's right, economists. You know they're about the most useless thing. They're paid to be wrong 2/3 of the time. And I'm telling you, our economy, they keep telling us our economy is getting better, right? Right? I mean, what a joke. It's like Hitler reporting back to the German people that he's winning the war. Isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, just look at the jobs market right now. It's just ridiculous, huh? We must be having a jobless recovery. A jobless recovery. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard.
And we're back on Michael Wordsworth. France maintains key ban on Monsanto's GMO maize crops. This article by Anthony Gucciardi from Natural Society. In another massive victory against Monsanto and the spread of genetically modified crops, French Prime Minister Jean-Marc Ayrault has announced that the nation will be maintaining a key ban on the only remaining GMO currently allowed in Europe. Known as Monsanto's GMO maize crops, or MON810 maize, the original ban was brought forth back in March following the French court's previous annulment on a November ban. Thanks to activism by French citizens and serious political outcry, Monsanto is now effectively blocked from Europe's gigantic marketplace. This is even more true when you consider the fact that France is the largest grower of crops in all of Europe, making it an agricultural behemoth of sorts. With this move by such a large and influential nation, it will surely lead to similar legislation to prop up and succeed throughout the rest of the globe. Of course, like with most other decisions regarding Monsanto, even Reuters admits that France was under large amounts of pressure to soften its stance on GMOs. This is due to the fact that Monsanto has significant pull when it comes to government around the globe, with the United States in particular being the launch pad for the biotechnology movement. We now know, thanks to WikiLeaks, in fact, that the United States ambassadors have actually threatened nations opposed to Monsanto's GMO maize crops, going as far as to threaten them with, quote, military-style trade wars. When considering that this is but one leak, it is very concerning. France has really been leading the charge against Monsanto or going against the political pressure. However, also finding Monsanto guilty of chemical poisoning earlier this year. According to the Prime Minister, the ruling was also part of a wider plan to reduce the use of chemicals in farming. Overall, many countries have taken action against Monsanto and its many harmful creations. Peru has banned Monsanto's GMO for a total of 10 years. Hungary uprooted the company's crops from its farmland. And even California is seeking to label GMOs this November. Awesome. That's great. From Agent Orange, which was known to kill 400,000 and cause 500,000 birth defects, to GMO maize, Monsanto's time for experimentation may be soon up. Caitlin?
Oh, well, I don't have anything as critical as that, but this comes from the Natural News, and it's we're back, the hilarity of the nanny state knows no bounds, especially not in New York City, where Mayor Bloomberg oversaw a large-sized soda ban that just became law. The really hilarious part of the law, it does not apply to aspartame-laced diet sodas, which by any honest measure are far more toxic to your health than regular sodas made with HFCS.
High fructose corn syrup.
All right. Well, HFCS may cause diabetes and obesity, but aspartame causes neurological damage and early onset Alzheimer's, but that's just what New York needs, it seems. A wave of crabby, soda-drinking senior citizens who are half-blind and can't remember where their apartment building is located. Or has that actually happened? So, the New York City Health Board actually thinks diet soda is healthier than regular soda is a sad, sad commentary on the state of nutritional ignorance in NYC. So, under this nanny state plan, citizens will be pushed to consume more neurotoxic aspartame. Gee, what a brilliant plan. Why not ban vitamins too and just force everybody to take a daily chemotherapy pill and call it a public health initiative? That's ridiculous. It goes on to say soda prohibition will only create a new black market. Well, I'll tell you.
Well, aspartame, I guess aspartame, aspartame, I don't know. It's I've heard it pronounced. It's very important that
or aspartame.
It's important that people actually know about that substance. We haven't talked about it much, but it's very akin to basically they take the waste products of microbial matter, and it's basically micro bug crap. Excretions. That's your sweetener combined with a chemical. The guy that discovered it noticed it was sweet and then got FDA approval. And he got the approval because he was able to kill something with it. You can't really get approval unless it's toxic. And anyhow, yes, it has been linked to temporary blindness.
Oh, yeah.
It's a psychological neurotoxin. It affects you in many, many ways. It's very dangerous stuff. The funny thing about it is the ban on the soda drinks that you were reading about, was it over 12, 16 ounces?
No, he didn't. The man that wrote the article didn't specify. I know that they're pushing for smaller size for consumers to purchase, but I think that Bloomberg.
So he's banned aspartame.
Okay, no, you know what it is. He oversaw a large-sized soda ban. So I think what they did is they kind of banned the supersizing.
Right, anything over 12 ounces.
Okay.
Is a $200 fine. But if you get caught with the bag of weed under an ounce, it's a $100 fine. So now drinking
Well-
soda more than 12 ounces from a to-go place is now more of a crime than having a bag of weed on you.
Well, I have to admit it would be more dangerous to be drinking the soda than smoking the weed.
That's one law that's actually they got right.
I guess so.
You're right, especially since, like you were reading, this is...
Sorry, commentary on the nutritional ignorance of the health board.
Well, and the people that are trying to diet, don't buy anything that says diet. My God in heaven, please do not buy anything that says diet. It's designed to make you fatter.
It actually is. What they've actually found is some of these synthetic sweeteners actually cause your body to produce an insulin response that actually creates weight. It actually causes you to convert the carbohydrates into fat, which makes you fatter.
There you go. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but what does? And that's what I mean about, like, this show is about protecting your life, liberty, and health. And in the health news, a man was saved by vitamin C. He led the protest at a corrupt Auckland hospital in Australia, actually a New Zealand dairy farmer who overcame life-threatening pneumonia using intravenous vitamin C injections is staging a protest at the hospital that wanted to kill him rather than administer the unconventional treatment. So he went and treated himself with high doses of intravenous vitamin C. I mean, you got to be careful with that. You don't want to. High doses are something you got to be careful. But chemotherapy backfires as causes healthy cells to feed growth of cancer tumors. This from Mike Adams, the health ranger. Ever since chemotherapy was introduced into the practice of Western medicine, doctors and oncologists have been trying to answer this nagging question. Why does chemotherapy seem to work at first, but then cancer tumor cells grow back even more aggressively?
Oh, come on. They don't understand the creation of a super cancer cell that's immune?
No, they do not.
Wow.
No.
Let me explain it. No, Michael, explain it to the people.
Well, it turns out that chemotherapy damages healthy cells, causing them to secrete a protein that accelerates the growth of cancer tumors. This protein, known as WENT16B, is taken up by nearby cancer cells, causing them to grow, invade, and importantly, resist subsequent therapy. Now, that comes from Peter Nelson of the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle. He's the co-author of the study that documented this phenomenon, published in Nature Medicine. This protein, it turns out, explains why cancer tumors grow more aggressively following chemotherapy treatments. In essence, chemotherapy turns healthy cells into WNT16B factories, which churn out this activator chemical that accelerates cancer tumor growth. The findings of the study were confirmed with prostate cancer, breast cancer, and ovarian cancer tumors. This discovery that chemotherapy backfires by accelerating cancer tumor growth is being characterized as completely unexpected by scientists. Oh, who would ever figure it? Oh, we don't know anything. Just get more chemotherapy. Well, the chemotherapy fraud is being exposed. As Natural News has explained over the last decade, chemotherapy is medical fraud. Rather than boosting the immune system of patients, it harms the immune system, causing tumors to grow back. This latest researching further confirms what we've known for years in the holistic health community, that chemotherapy is, flatly stated, poison. It's not treatment, it's not medicine, and it's not prevention or a cure. It's poison with virtually no medicinal value except in perhaps 1 to 2% of cancer cases. The number one side effect of chemotherapy is, by the way, cancer. Cancer centers should be technically renamed poison centers because they are in the business of poisoning patients with the toxic cocktail of chemicals that modern science reveals to be a cancer tumor growth accelerant. I'm Michael Wordsworth, sitting in with Caitlin Redding. You've been listening to Breaking Down the News, where I are up at the top of the hour.
Oh my gosh, we're done already? Holy cow.
Time goes by when you're having fun.
We should have the 2.5 hours on Monday and the hour and a half on Friday.
You would think. And actually, I was thinking on Friday, if no world impending news comes crushing down on us, I was going to rebroadcast some of the old interviews that I had with earlier guests experts in their own fields, and I don't know, it just kind of gives us a chance to, you know, keep from grabbing so much. I mean, I think we covered all the news today that are out there. Yeah, I mean, we did a good job. In an hour and a half, we covered all that information. If you are out there listening, you are now a well-informed
pretty much
citizen. And keep in mind, if you need to listen again, our show is archived. Just go to breakingdownthenews.com. You'll see all the written articles for topics that we talked about. And you can reach our show archives from the homepage. It's in the right-hand column there. It's listed by topic with a little short description, by date, and it'll play up. Register with your iPodcast, your podcast tune. Should we do...
And if you'd like to meet us, maybe, you can catch a glimpse of us at Linneman's on September 28th at the fundraiser, our riverwestradio.com fundraiser.
September 28th, come out and support at 8 p.m.
Check the
September
website
28th.
For more details. There'll be some food offerings, and there'll be a lot of acts from our radio personalities. They're very talented people. Come find that out.
Indeed they are. Indeed they are.
Matter of fact, I think our next...
Hey, Eric Green is in the house now, so we're going to do Green Neighborhood coming up next.
Yay.
Shortly, give him about 3-4 minutes to get on air.
Riding a bike there.
All right, I'm Michael Wordsworth. Thank you for listening.
You guys have a good evening.
Peace out.